Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
Good Friday morning. It is 5:07 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. It is a happy Friday as we cruise into this long Labor Day weekend. It's Patrice Onwuka, your usual Friday gal. I'm sitting in for Larry, who's on a well-deserved vacation. And here in the passenger side, I've got with me Hans von Spakovsky, the great Hans from the Heritage Foundation. Hans, welcome aboard.
Patrice, thanks for having me. Hopefully Larry is off and going to have a nice time with his family this weekend.
He is celebrating 10 years, and so we're going to try our best and navigate everybody to the roadways into the weekend. How is that? How's that analogy for you?
That sounds good.
All right. Well, folks, at 6:35, we're going to have John Reed. He's running for Virginia's lieutenant governor. He's going to give us an update on the race. At 7:05, our friend Mary Catherine Ham, she's going to be joining us to talk a little bit about what's going on in the news, as well as a really fun annual event coming up within the next couple of weeks. At 7:35, Virginia's own Governor Glenn Youngkin will be joining us, so make sure you're staying tuned for that. And at 8:05, Garrett Exner. He's one of the veterans on the Veterans on Duty board member. He was an appointee by Governor Youngkin to the Virginia Military Board of Visitors. He's going to give us an update on what's going on there. And at 8:35, Stuart Whitson. He is running for a special election to the U.S. House to represent Virginia's 11th congressional district. We've got Virginia covered for you, but don't worry. We've got Maryland covered. We've got D.C. covered. We've got all of the DMV. So let's get into it. Well, this morning, we've got some updates on the tragic shooting that happened in Minnesota just 2 days ago. Folks, if you don't know, we've had, unfortunately, the loss of two children, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old were shot and killed. 18 others have been injured. And unfortunately, this was at a Catholic school during a mass right towards the end of Wednesday morning's program here. A crazy, deranged, young 23-year-old man who identifies as a woman, maybe not anymore, whatever the case is, this shooter decided to take the lives of these two young, beautiful children and tried to wreak some havoc and mayhem. Hans, before we get into some updates, I just wanted to pause and maybe give you a moment to reflect on your thoughts on the shooting this week. I haven't spoken to you yet, so would just love to hear your initial thoughts and reaction to what happened this week.
Well, it's not just, people say it's a tragedy. It is. But it's also a horrible reflection on the evil that exists in the world, that this individual would attack children like this. I mean, I'm just as shocked as everyone else about it, and anyone who has any kind of sympathy for this man who was pretending he was a woman, that should just go right out the door. And the other thing that's just horrible to me is how certain Democrats turn this into a political event almost as soon as it happened. And that also is just a terrible, terrible thing, and frankly, a reflection on their character.
A poor reflection on their character, Hans. Democrats, lawmakers, policymakers, but also many of some in the media who were quick to, just say the most asinine things like prayer is not needed at this moment. We're going to get into some of the audio and some of the reactions that we've heard. But, I agree with you, Hans. Now is not the time for one side. And I'm going to say one side, which is doing this, to latch on and start to grandstand about their preferred policy prescription, which is, to lock down guns. This is actually a time for us to surround that family with love. I think of my boys on Wednesday morning when this was breaking, Hans. I had literally just dropped off my 3 boys, 2 in elementary school, 1 in middle school. for their second day of school. And it was like a gut punch to think that, when I said goodbye to them and kissed them on their foreheads, that I could not, God forbid, I was blessed to be able to hold them again. But two sets of parents didn't have that moment. And so, right now, it is absolutely fine to be praying for those families, to be praying for the nation, to be praying for our children, and for safety. And then also now we're going to be moving into the phase where we're trying to understand this monster and deranged monster. And I'm putting that in quotation marks because that is what Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem calls him, and rightly so. She called him a deranged monster. She said this week, "This level of violence is unthinkable. Our deepest prayers are with the children, parents, families, and educators and Christians everywhere. We mourn with them, we pray for healing, and we will never forget them." And so, I think that sentiment is the right kind of sentiment to be expressing right now. Folks, if you don't know, according to the driver's license of the deranged monster, that's what we'll refer to him as, he describes himself as a female born in June 17th of 2002. There was a name change in 2020 when this person was still a child, and this name change was actually green-lighted by the person's mother.
Right.
And so we're going to get into some interesting things about the mother of this person themselves. But, at this moment, I think it's not just a tragedy, but it's something that we have to think about. Houses of worship, unfortunately, are thinking about this. And Hans, let's talk about the religious element of this. You have some people who say they don't know what the motive is. They don't want to believe they know what the motive is. But based on what has been collected so far, the manifesto that was posted on YouTube pretty much timed to the point where the shooter decided to take action, talked about hating Jews, talked about hating Christians, talked about hating Catholics, talked about hating President Trump. This person hated a lot of people and probably hated himself. And so they had handwritten journals on the weaponry that this person used. All of these ridiculous hate-filled messages being scrawled, referring to the killing, referring to wanting to kill people. Hans, I can't deny, though, the fact that because this was at a Catholic mass, at a church, at a school that this person attended when he was young, and his mother worked there as an employee, I can't deny there has to be a motive around religion. Is that your reading too?
Oh yeah, and it's not just that he was filled with hate for religion, and he was an anti-Semite, but we should point out that yesterday, I think it surfaced that 2 years ago, organizations representing religious, particularly Catholic schools in Minnesota, sent a letter to the governor, Governor Walz, saying the state had put in like a $50 million program to increase safety at schools because of, various threats against the schools, to provide all kinds of emergency training, et cetera. And who did they exclude? They excluded religious schools like this one from that, and the letter complained about that and said, look, all the schools need to be protected, and the governor did nothing about it.
It's sickening. Governor Walz, who could have been Vice President Walz at this point. To me, that sounds like discrimination on the basis of religion. And if you're going to treat all schools, if you're going to treat some schools with added protection, you should be treating all schools with added protection. It's sick. We're going to get a little bit more into the religious element of this story. We've got a lot of updates, some audio to play for folks. But right now, it's 5:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So Hans, let's pick up on that thread that you started weaving before we went on the break just now, talking about the fact that we've learned Catholic churches had reached out to the governor of Minnesota asking for added protection, funding to be able to protect their schools, just as the governor was providing funding for other public schools in the state to do so. And unfortunately, Governor Walz ignored the letter, never responded. We have here that in this letter it said, our schools are under attack, urgent and critical need. And that letter was ignored. And this is on top of, I think, there's been a rise in obviously anti-Semitic attacks, but there's also been a rise in attacks against American Catholics. There's been a recorded 528 attacks on Catholic churches since 2020, fueled by a culture of abortion extremism and open anti-Christian hate. I mean, should it be a no-brainer that policymakers should be looking out for every type of house of worship, but particularly those where there is an increase in targeting of extreme behavior?
Well, of course, but remember, this was also reflective of the whole attitude, not just of Walz, but of the liberal establishment. Remember, during the Biden administration, particularly after the Supreme Court's decision on abortion, remember, there was a huge increase in attacks on churches, on pregnancy resource centers. And what did the U.S. Justice Department and the FBI do about that? Nothing. They did nothing about it. They just ignored it. And that was reflective of the general attitude of liberals about things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad because, listen, you don't have to promote any particular religion. That's fine, but you shouldn't discriminate against them. Let me read for our listeners here some of the ways that Catholic churches have been targeted. Beheaded statues, threats against parishioners, shattered stained glasses, spray-painted walls, ransacking, arson. Gosh, even urine in the holy water and feces in the infant's baptismal water. I mean, but that's the damage to properties. Then you have a murdered priest and an altar set on fire. Now we're adding to this, unfortunately, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old murdered as they were praying. And cue the left, who can always be depended on to be tone deaf in the moment. Let's play, Michael. Let's play cut one. This is the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, who, as we know, is actually in a pretty heated mayoral contest right now. He's talking about the response to children being gunned down.
I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone. We should be operating from a place of love for our kids.
All right, so that is one aspect. That is one response from the left, which is, "Oh, this is not the time to be anti-trans." No one here is being anti-trans.
No, of course not.
But I think that there's enough evidence to suggest that trans individuals, people who are identifying as trans, they tend to have mental health issues that come into play. And we have seen a number of cases where those individuals have also taken it to the extremes and done very extreme things. The second thread and narrative we're hearing is coming from the media. Let's play Dana Bash.
That's right. Forget about thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying when they were murdered through a church window.
And we're going to add to this Michael Steele, who, if you remember, Hans used to be a Republican. Now he's an MSNBC host. That you can figure out what that means.
I agree with the mayor. I'm not the thoughts and prayers. I'm so beyond that nonsense, the lie of that, because what we have are people who continue to stand in the way of actually doing something to stop the violence against their own.
Enough of Michael Steele. Hans, I think it's the left is ridiculous and the media pundits are ridiculous here.
Well, particularly those kind of comments. I mean, the anti-religious sentiment expressed by the two of them. I mean, that says it all. That's the whole attitude, unfortunately, the political left these days, which is anti-religious. I mean, it's unbelievable, really, when you look at our history and the fact that we were settled by individuals coming here to be able to practice their religions freely, and the anti-religious sentiments. Frankly, that ties in with the anti-Semitic sentiments that we see, unfortunately, in the Democratic Party these days. And it's just part of what is going on here, which is, like I said, just terrible.
It is. Well, we're going to have a little bit more on this because you know what? The left can't keep its mouth shut. And I think they probably feel like this is an opportunity for them to galvanize support. It is not. But right now, it's 5:23. All right. We're going to continue the discussion of the Minnesota shooting. We've got some more updates and some more unbelievable audio from the left and media pundits who should know better. Plus, what's going on with the parents? Do we know? We've got some updates on that for you. Stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Good Friday morning. It is 5:37 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. It's your usual Friday gal, Patrice Onwuka. I'm in Larry's chair today, folks. He is on a well-deserved vacation. And joining me is Hans von Spakovsky of the Heritage Foundation. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning. Wait a minute. If you're in Larry's chair and I'm in your chair, does that mean I should have come into the studio wearing a dress? I mean,
no, Hans,
no.
That's another announcement for another day. But we're going to take these folks in through the next, 3.5 hours as we cruise into this long Labor Day weekend. And we've got a stacked show today. At 6:30, John Reed, who's running for Virginia's lieutenant governor. He's going to be here to give us an update on the race. 7:05, Mary Catherine Ham, a good friend of the show. She's going to join us to talk about the news of the day and also the upcoming Travis Manion Foundation 9/11 run. 7:35, Virginia's own governor, Governor Glenn Youngkin, is going to be here to join us, so please stay tuned for that. At 8:05, Garrett Exner. He's a Veterans on Duty board member and a Governor Youngkin appointee to the Virginia Military Institute Board of Visitors. He's going to give us an update on what's going on with the Board of Visitors. And at 8:35, Stuart Whitson. He's running in a special election to represent Virginia's 11th Congressional District. All right, so Hans, we started the morning just giving updates on what's happening in Minnesota. We know that on Wednesday morning, unfortunately, the tragic shooting at a Catholic church, a Catholic school, for what was it? I think the second or third day of school,
right.
was shattered by a deranged monster. A young man who identifies as a girl decided to take the life of 2 young children who were there for Mass just to pray. In addition, he wounded 18 other people, including 15 children. As you rightly reminded me, we want to make sure that we don't forget there are still young children in critical condition right now. And so our thoughts and our prayers are genuinely with these families, both the families who've lost their loved ones, their little ones, as well as the families who, are having to take care of their own who have been injured, and just the community there who right now, they need to be surrounded by love, support, and not fake tears. And I say that because, yesterday, or actually on Wednesday when this happened, MSNBC's Jen Psaki, former White House press secretary, she put out a tweet saying thoughts and prayers when kids are getting shot at their pews at a Catholic Mass. This is not the time for thoughts and prayers. Prayer, she said, prayer is not freaking enough. And I don't like to curse, and maybe people think that that's not a curse, but that's what she said. You would think that she would have said, okay, you know what? I probably mistweeted, made a wrong choice with my social media post. Let me take that down and clarify myself. Instead, she doubled down, Hans. Yesterday, we have a cut 4. This is Jen Psaki sobbing and then turning her sobs quickly into a rail against Republicans.
And all they should be hoping to do is have someone to sit with at lunch or someone to play with on the playground. And they should be waiting to hear an update when they get home. And that is not what these parents at the school experience today. Sorry, this is a tough one. Having your child killed while they are sitting in a pew for a morning prayer service is not what any parent should have to worry about. And I have felt a mixture of anger and a lot of anger and emotional exhaustion about this today, as I'm sure many of you have, because we have been here so many times. And yet again, like clockwork, half of the politicians in our country have little more to offer than thoughts and prayers. That is all they are offering. Join all of us in praying for the victims, was Vice President J.D. Vance's response today. That's what he said. That's it. Please join me in praying for everyone involved, Trump wrote. We have seen this play out over and over again. There is a shooting, then come the thoughts and prayers, and then comes the attempt to shift the focus. This is what always happens. You're going to start seeing narratives. You're already seeing them. They're already out there.
That's enough of Jen Psaki and her crocodile tears. I mean, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, Hans, and say that she was sincere in her crying. But it's kind of interesting to see how quickly she shifted blame to Republicans. She called out J.D. Vance. She called out President Trump. Well, yesterday afternoon during the White House press briefing, the current press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, had a very good response to Jen Psaki. Let's play 10-5.
Yes, I saw the comments of my predecessor, Ms. Psaki, and frankly, I think they're incredibly insensitive and disrespectful to the tens of millions of Americans of faith across this country who believe in the power of prayer, who believe that prayer works, and who believe that in a time of mourning like this, when beautiful young children were killed while praying in a church, it's utterly disrespectful to deride the power of prayer in this country, and it's disrespectful to the millions of Americans of faith. And I would encourage Ms. Psaki to pray for these families themselves who need it right now more than ever.
There you go, Hans. Whose side are you on here, Caroline or Jen Psaki's?
Well, I think that's pretty obvious. And contrary to Jen Psaki, I hope all our listeners out there will continue, no matter what their religions, to pray for all of not just the families of the 2 kids who were murdered, but all of the kids who are still in hospitals, praying for their recovery. And look, if she wants to blame someone, then she should blame herself and the doctors and psychiatrists who have refused to acknowledge the mental issues involved with individuals who want to pretend that they are a different sex than from which they were born. And all of the studies show that they have huge mental illness problems, much higher suicide rates than the rest of the population. And rather than trying to treat that, they want to pretend that it's not an issue and not a problem, and that's part of what's going on here.
Well, if Jen Psaki wants to figure out, it provides some airtime to that conversation, I think that would be well appreciated too. All right, it is 5:44.
Later this morning on the Chris Plante Show, Minneapolis transgender psycho killer declared, "I'm tired of being trans. I wish I had never brainwashed myself." 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Well, Hans, looking forward to Chris's show later as he dives into this case here of this transgender individual. But let's talk a little bit about his parents here. So the New York Post is reporting that the mother of this shooter is not cooperating with police. Mary Grace Westman, she worked at the school, Annunciation Catholic School, which was targeted by her son, now pretending to be a woman or a girl. She has not responded to their attempts to reach her. This is what the Minneapolis police announced at a press conference yesterday. Interestingly, though, they have contacted his father, And so, we will see what this means. She has lawyered up. She's retained criminal defense attorney Ryan Gary. What do you make of that, Hans?
That is just bizarre. I mean, why would she hire a criminal defense lawyer? Does this mean that she had prior knowledge of what her son was intending to do and perhaps is afraid that she will be criminally prosecuted because she had prior knowledge and didn't do anything about it? Maybe that's not the case, but that is certainly the impression it gives, that she's hiring a criminal defense lawyer and refusing to talk to the police about it.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, as a mother, there are things that you'd observe about your child. I can tell you, 2 minutes out of the school door, I can observe whether something happened in my child's day without him saying anything, just based on his demeanor. The look on his face tells me all, and he could say, my day was fine, and I know. I've got to wonder what this mother knows about her son. We've from the reporting and from the updates that we've been provided by authorities, it seems like he didn't necessarily, there weren't any other red flags about him. But that said, his family, his siblings, his parents had to have seen things about him that would be alarming, that would raise a flag. And so, I kind of agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Hans, that something is amiss with his mother. If she is lawyering up and not cooperating, but the criminal, the shooter's father is cooperating and is working with law enforcement. But that said, there are a lot of parents in this situation here, and I'm just reading some of the stories. For example, one of the shooting victims was a nurse treating other victims when her 12-year-old daughter was shot. This is coming from also from the New York Post. She was a pediatric critical care nurse who was rushed to work. Her name was, and unfortunately, her daughter, Sophia Forches, who's 12 years old, is alive but is still fighting for her life. I mean, I can't imagine you're a mom, you're working as a nurse, you're taking care of shooting victims, and then suddenly you find out that your daughter is brought in. That's got to be heartbreaking.
Well, what a wonderful contrast. I mean, what a contrast between this evil monster on one side, and yet on the other, we had folks like her stepping in to try to help these kids, and so many others also trying to help the families and offering their prayers and sympathy and emotional support. This is depressing on the one hand, but on the other hand, when you see the reaction of so many good people, it kind of restores my faith somewhat in Americans and what a good people they generally are.
That's right. We are a good people. When there is, especially when children are involved, I think everyone wants to make sure that they are okay, that they're safe, and everyone is taken care of. I think to round out our conversation here, I would love to leave our listeners with the words of one of the fathers who lost his child. This is 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel and 10-year-old Harper Moisky. These are the two victims who were killed, unfortunately. And we've got audio from Fletcher's father, the 8-year-old boy who was killed. Instead of reading what he says, I'm just going to let us play this clip and let his words really sink in about who was lost on Wednesday.
Yesterday, a coward decided to take our 8-year-old son Fletcher away from us. Because of their actions, we will never be allowed to hold him, talk to him, play with him, and watch him grow into the wonderful young man he was on the path to becoming. Fletcher loved his family, friends, fishing, cooking, and any sport that he was allowed to play. While the hole in our hearts and lives will never be filled, I hope that in time our family can find healing. I pray that the other victim's family can find some semblance of the same. I'm hopeful that all the wounded are able to make a full recovery and return home to their families, And finally, all the people, and especially the children, impacted by this horrific event are able to recover mentally and find strength to live loving, happy, and full lives. Over the past day, I've heard many stories accounting the swift and heroic actions of children and adults alike from inside the church. Without these people and their selfless actions, this could have been a tragedy of many magnitudes more. For these people, I'm thankful.
Beautiful. Those are just beautiful words coming from the father of 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel, who lost his life on Wednesday. We join with him. Our hearts go out to him. Our prayers we're standing in solidarity with this father who will no longer be able to hold his son. And we're praying for all the victims who are still recovering, that they will have a speedy and secure and safe recovery. And we are absolutely behind law enforcement, who wants to get to the bottom of understanding what happened to the shooter, why the shooter did this, the red flags that he exhibited, if his family was involved, and everything that goes with it. Stay with us at O'Connor and Company. We're going to give you as much as we know, as much as we're learning, and come together as a community. It's 5:54.